What's up, you fucking weirdos? Welcome to where the weird ones are.
Yeah. Weird ones only, we talking that truth. Ghost in the attic, yeah, show me the proof. Aliens creeping, they light in the roof. Minds wide open, we shatter the booth. Conspiracies deep, we dig in the scars. Demons and angels and bodies on Mars. Cryptids be watching, they lurk in the dark. Mental on edge, but we glowing like stars. Welcome to the pod, no cap, it's a seance. Whispers in the static, spirits doing dance. Reptiles in suits, yeah, running the lands. MK Ultra made a puppet of your mans. Wendigo hunger, dogman strut, flat woods, eyes glow. Slice through the cut, Bigfoot tagging trees. Marking the trail, weird ones ride, no room for the frail. Talking about trauma, talking that soul. Peeling back layers, we dig in a hole. Sacred geometry, numbers align. Ancestors speak through the veil in the sign. Ayahuasca dreams, third eye lit. Shadow self lurking, we making it spit. No mainstream lies. This the dirt where the weird ones rise from the blood and the hurt. Weird ones only, we talking that truth. Ghost in the attic, yeah, show me the proof. Aliens creeping, they light in the roof. Minds wide open, we shatter the booth. Conspiracies deep, we dig in the scars. Demons and angels and bodies on Mars. Cryptids be watching, they lurk in the dark. Mental on edge, but we glowing like stars. Voices in the woods got chills on the neck. Black-eyed kids at the door, now we check. CIA tapped in, fluoride drip. Project Bluebeam, watch that script. Talking about grief, talking about fear. Talking about why them voices appear. Healing the mind while breaking the chain. Spiritual warfare deep in the brain. We don't run from the strange, we live in the strange. Tattoo the truth and the scars and the pain. Stay weird, the mantra we own in the name. Reality bends, so we bend to the same. From the attic to the swamp, we tracking the freak. Where the veil get thin and the silence speak. We ain't your norm, we off that grid. Weird as the wave, yo, this where we live.
What's up, you fucking weirdos? Welcome to another episode of Where the Weird Ones Are. My name is Kevin, but you probably already knew that, and if you didn't, you do now. Today's episode is 210 with my good buddy Shayn Jones. We talk about a lot of things. We don't really this is not an encounter episode. Shane's already had his encounter episode where he tells all of his stories. This is more of just like a fun chat of different topics, and we get into a lot of different ones. So really enjoy talking to him every time I get to see him, every time I get to talk to him. Always a lot of fun. So if you want to hear his stories, that's far back in the catalog if you haven't already. And I believe, I'm not 100% sure, I'm pretty sure I saw this on Instagram in his girlfriend's wife's story, his significant other, whatever, that their daughter just celebrated a birthday. So if I'm not mistaken, happy birthday, October. The first time I met her, she colored me a picture of the squonk, and I have it magnetized still to this day. It's been 2 years since I met Shane and his family. So yeah, her picture that she colored for me is still magnetized to my refrigerator. But yeah, so this conversation, it goes in a lot of different avenues. We talk about, high strangeness, like the disappearances of, in the Bass Strait, UFO phenomena. I do believe we get into a little bit of a cryptid talk. And we talk about a lot of current events like riots. We talk about serial killers and we mainly Jeffrey Dahmer, and the interesting thing was that I think Jeffrey Dahmer might have been a Wendigo. I don't know. I'm just eating people is weird to me, but anyway, so that's a couple different things that we cover that we talk about in this episode. So real quick, shout out to the sponsor, Flavors of the Forest, Bigfoot's Breath. Get yourself some raw garlic dust. You will not be disappointed. Flavorsforest.com. That's where you can get this shit. It's very potent, way better than anything that you're going to get at the store. I promise you. I swear by this. I swear I put it on everything. And when I mean everything, I mean everything. So go get yourself some. They have a whole bunch of other stuff, like this one, which is spicy garlic. And they have horseradish. They have cranberry, ginger, and lion's mane. The lion's mane is the one that goes the quickest in my house. I need to get some more, actually, to be honest with you. I'm out. So, with that being said, go check them out. Again, that is flavorsforest.com. You can also follow them at flavorsforest on Instagram. And another shout out to a good buddy of mine. He will be on the show soon. Johnny Nitro with, let's see. See if we can focus on it. Can we focus on it, camera? Can we focus on it? Wild Beauty moisturizer. They do a lot of things. They do lip balms. You gotta go, listen. You gotta go to wildbeauty.com and check it out. This moisturizer, I like to use it on my face because my cheeks get dry from all the sun because I work outside. Or well, most of my life I've worked outside, so I like to put it on, and I put on a little bit, and I see that I'm in the camera that I'm a little glitchy. That's okay. But I like putting it on my face because it doesn't give me that stupid, like, oily, greasy feeling. It actually, once it rubs in, it's in there, you know? And it moisturizes the shit out of my skin, and I love it. So, this one is cedar wood, jasmine, vanilla. It smells great, too. Not that I really care to have my face smelling like vanilla, but I just like what it does. It's fucking fantastic. You have to get yourself some. So, you can follow Johnny Nitro on Instagram by that name. You can check out wildbeauty.com. You can also check out, I do believe he has his own podcast. I don't know if it's his or if he's just a part of it, but Whitetail Advantage, all about hunting and game and all that stuff. So, yeah, check them out. Other than that, I think that's all I really have to talk to you guys about. I hope you guys are out there being safe, taking care of each other, being the wonderful people that I know you are and that I know you can be. Because if you're experiencing any kind of mental distress, you can call 988 and they will hook you up with whatever distress you are experiencing. And if you are just somebody who wants to help somebody who's experiencing mental distress, you can also dial 988 because they can hook you up with all the resources that you need to help said person. We lose too many of us every day just from the battles we have in our head. So I hope you stay another day. I'm glad you exist. I love you, and I hope we continue having this relationship where I talk to you and I tell you stories and I have other people come on and tell you stories. And maybe eventually you'll want to come on and tell your story. Whether it's, a UFO encounter, Bigfoot, ghosts, haunted houses, conspiracies. You want to talk about conspiracies that you have a lot of information about? I'm down for that for sure. Because the government is corrupted. We already know that. And there's nothing really there. I mean, obviously there's good things that come out of the government, but there's a lot of things that I'm not a fan of. So we also like to talk about spirituality. If you're into, a lot of different spiritual things, we can do that. And mental health. Obviously, if you've been listening for a while, mental health is I'm very big on. So if you have any kinds of stories that go follow under those categories, or if you just want to shoot the shit, you want to talk to me personally, just hit me up at where the weird ones are at gmail.com, and we can either set something up for a personal chat or we can have you on the show. However you want to do it, that's fine by me. Just please, like, again, you need to stay, okay? Because when God created the earth, he's like, or she, or she, um, looked out across this plain, this beautiful, vast land, and was like, you know what? needs one of you. Boom, you were created. So keep it on. Let's get into this conversation with Shayn, shall we? Where the Weird Ones Go Productions.
Hey, this is Rochelle Stratton, and you are listening to Kevin with Where the Weird Ones Are. So sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Yo, what up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Where the Weird Ones Are. You already know who I am, but I have a lovely guest. He's a beautiful man out of the great state of Michigan. He has a couple shows that I think you should check out if you haven't checked out yet, but I'll let him tell you those shows, where you can find it, where you can find him, and all those such things. So, Shayn, man, how's it going, bro?
It's going, man. Excited to be here finally. It's been a hot minute since I've been on the show, or since we've done a show in general. So I'm excited to get into something, because I never know quite what we're going to get into when we start these shows.
It's always fun and interesting. Picking your brain has been interesting and fun. I feel like intellectually you store so much knowledge to where like I could say something and then it'll like spark something in there and you'll just pull some shit out and I'm just like, oh yeah, please tell me some more.
See, but on the flip side, you ask me to talk about something and you don't give me like any direction, and I don't know where to go with it. It's like I have to have something that like sparks something that's in the back of my mind, because it's like half the shit that I end up getting into, it's like it just pops up. It's like a folder, you know. It's just in the back of your mind, and it just, as soon as somebody says something, it's like, oh, bing, here it is. Bring that up. But yeah, you ask me to just talk straight up, and it's like, what direction do you want me to go here?
Oh man. Well, if you don't mind telling the two people that listen to this show about your shows and where they can find you and your shows.
Well, first and foremost, my solo show is Inquiries of Our Reality with Shayn Jones. That one is an interview style show, much like this show, and we dive into a large facet of a bunch of different topics, from cryptids to the paranormal to aliens to conspiracies, hidden history, spirituality. Honestly, anything that's an open-minded topic, we pretty much end up covering on that show and end up getting into a deep, open style conversation about it. And the other show that you happen to listen to and mention in the beginning, and also has a friend of both of us, Bizarre Encounters with Shayn and Oren. That one, a little bit different of a format. It's usually Oren and I deep diving into stuff. We've been doing a kind of a schedule lately where we have him do a deep dive every month, I do a deep dive, and then we end up having a guest on. And then on that off week, we end up doing our other show, which is Bizarre Inquiries. And that one is our YouTube live show. And with that one, we end up diving into some weird articles, clips, questions, anything that people might want to submit or that we happen to come across. And we kind of let our minds wander from there, get a little bit goofy. And all the shows are kind of fun, all kind of their own different formats. So got a little touch of everything for everybody, and a little touch of somewhere to be able to put each little facet of my different types of research, because it's kind of hard just to do one thing universal. I have enough issue with that with the interview show, that I cover too many topics, but you know, it's one of those things. You'll talk about conspiracies, politics, all this, and it's like there's a little bit of something for everybody, but if you cover one specific thing all the time, then you keep those people. But if not, people kind of just bounce in here and there, depending on if they want to listen to it or not. But
Right. I feel you on that. I started doing deep dive research for Patreon, because I'm like, what the fuck am I gonna do for Patreon? I'm trying to, because it'd be nice to just have enough money to cover like things that go wrong. You know what I mean? Like the subscriptions and for like Riverside, and like if like my computer shit the bed. Luckily, I have a my girlfriend's computer, so I'm using that now. And
dude, I was running off of my girlfriend's old laptop for the first 3 years of the show, and I just recently bought a laptop around Christmas time, because they had one at Best Buy that was normally like $2,000, and they had it down for like 600, and I still used a gift card on it, and it's like the first new laptop I've ever owned in my life, and I'm like scared to like move it, because you know, fucking, like, if this thing goes wrong, dude, I'm fucked for the show at this point. Like,
yeah. It's fucking it's the weirdest thing, because I had a computer that I started with the show, and then it didn't have enough memory, so I was like, I got a newer one, and then as soon as I started using the new one, the old one just stopped like working and responding to me, and I'm like, you were just working the last time I used you. What the fuck is happening? And then this one started being weird with Riverside, like the quality, like when I did my live shows, I was like, and I'm like, what the fuck is happening? And then I switched to this computer because she doesn't use it now at all. She has a work computer now. She works from home, and she just uses that laptop now for everything. So she's like, just use mine. So that's what I'm doing. And I got one of those like Wi-Fi things because she likes to play. She'll play video games sometimes, and it'll sometimes like slow me down when I'm interviewing somebody. So, anywho,
Two suggestions that are podcast behind the scenes, so I apologize to the listeners, but I have to bring it up while I'm thinking about it. HP Envy, very nice laptop for podcasting. Around $600, and it has a touchscreen that you can flip over and use as an art pad. So 2 birds, 1 stone if you're doing merch designs.
Dope.
And another flip on a personal level for you. If you go, I don't know what you have for a phone plan, but if you set up Verizon, you can get a business plan by having a podcast, because it is a means of being able to make money. And with that, you can end up getting one of these fancy internet modems that I have underneath here as part of your line plan, because you need to at least have 3. And then you always got a backup, even if your internet goes out. So again, not to side tangent from the actual conversation, but 2 awesome podcast suggestions that I came across on accident.
Well, sir, that is important information that I probably am going to use. But anyway, so I've been doing like this deep dive research, and I've been writing it out into like scripts and shit for Patreon and stuff. And have you heard about like the disappearances over the Bass Strait in Australia?
I don't think that I have. How recent was that?
So, well, there's been disappearances from late 1800s, freaking maybe even further back to as of recently 22, I think, is the most recent one.
Like missing 411 type thing?
Yeah, I mean a little bit. Well, yeah. So the biggest what I based the episode on was this guy. He went missing. It was 1978, and he wanted to join the Air Force. He wanted to join the military, and the military wouldn't take him for whatever reason. So he started learning how to fly on his own, and he took just a personal plane out and went out, and he was flying over the Bass Strait. He radioed in that he was seeing something weird, and then he was never heard from again. So there's like apparently a ton of ships go missing out there and all this stuff. And of course, I was going to just bring up my notes real quick so I could tell you more specifically.
So it's kind of like a triangle location then.
Yes. Like the Bermuda Triangle. Yes.
Or like one of these weird triangle locations where you got the missing ships, all that kind of stuff. Because there's a few different locations like that. Like the Lake Michigan Triangle, just another one to throw in there. Talking about another I guess more aquatic one of these triangles, because of course you got like the Bridgewater Triangle and stuff, but it's a little bit different of a phenomenon because the stuff over water has all the missing ships and the missing planes, where the on ground ones seem like it's weird sightings and people going missing, which I guess is part of the ships and stuff, but specifically people, because obviously they're not taking boats in the forest. Hopefully, I don't think you're gonna get very far doing that.
Yeah, I would hope not. But so is this kid. His name's Frederick Valentik. He hasn't been found to this day. He went missing in the Bass Strait fucking in 1978. October 21st of 1978 to be specific, and it was a single engine Cessna, which is just a little plane. But so he went missing, and then I got a few other ones here, and let me scroll because I like to write stories when I do this stuff. So shit.
Dude, the scariest part is if you go down in saltwater, like if you don't find that body relatively soon, I mean, fish end up eating that shit pretty damn quick. I don't know if they get down to like the skeleton and stuff like that, or how far they necessarily. I mean, obviously they get down to the skeleton. I don't know if they start eating the skeleton as it starts to degrade from the salt water and stuff, because actually, I will take that back. fish do end up eating bones of other fish in order to get calcium to build up like their shells if they're crustaceans and things. So assumably, the fish are going to eat all the skin, eat all the organs, eat all that shit, and then the crustaceans are going to end up eating all of the bones. So if you don't find that within like a couple weeks, maybe probably even sooner than that, like that body's going to be gone forever, and you're never going to have a whisper of anything. Like maybe you'll find the plane. That's about probably the closest thing you'll end up finding. But I mean, with those Australian waters and currents and stuff down there, I mean, who knows how decayed or destroyed the plane could possibly be down there, getting beat with underwater currents and whatever the hell else might be down there,
Absolutely. And so there was a aircraft that went missing in 1934. There was a merchant vessel that went missing in 1944. And then a bomber went missing in 1954, all in the same area. And then in 78, that's when this guy fucking went missing. And there's supposedly there's a military base in the area that is occupied by both Australian military and US military, and supposedly they were conducting research on UFO phenomena there at this base.
Side note, where's this at in Australia? Like, if you're just kind of bringing it out to like a broader picture, does it happen to be in the like bottom? I'm trying to think about how this would look on a map. All right, the southwestern corner.
I don't know. Where's Melbourne? Melbourne.
I'm gonna have to look it up on a map. The
Because
reason I'm bringing it up,
tell you.
I don't know if you remember it. A few years ago, there was that weird location that would pop up on Google Maps that would pop up in Australia. And you could do that like street view of it. And when you end up like street viewing of this, it looked almost like some kind of like silo looking thing with like a bunch of like weird little like bubble orbs going like up the walls in it. And then as soon as people started talking about it on like TikTok and all that kind of shit, they like took it off or you couldn't actually see this location anymore. But I mean, either one, it was some type of prank and they actually caught it and they were like, oh shit, this shouldn't be up anyways. And they just removed it. Or on the flip side, there was some type of weird secret that was being shown within that. And I mean, there's definitely a lot of weirdness with like Google Maps and stuff. But yeah, I'm curious if that was the same place or not. You said it was Melbourne?
Yeah, it's the area of Melbourne, however the fuck you say it.
All right, let's check this out on a map.
Shrimp on the bobby. That's what I mean.
Shrimp on the bobby. Nope, it's a complete opposite corner. That is unfortunate. That would have been really, really cool if it was the same place. Because the location I'm thinking of apparently is somewhere near like Perth. If you go down to that area, there's like a tip down at the bottom of the map, and you can keep continuously zooming in. And then there was like a curve that you would follow, and then you'd be able to like street view some random spot in the middle of the water, and then it would show you that weird location. But that was a few years ago, dude, when people were heavy into looking up weird places that shouldn't be shown on Google Maps. I mean, I wonder what happened to that phenomenon. I don't feel like there's a lot of interesting Google Maps shit that gets thrown up anymore, especially in the conspiracy community.
Yes, I would agree. Conspiracy community. Well, actually, a lot of these communities are fucking seem to be falling apart as of lately. Have you noticed this?
Yeah, it seems like everybody's kind of
fighting,
existing in their own. I mean, it's either one of two things. There's people that are fighting because when I first came into like podcasting and shit, it seemed like everything was like very, very cliquey. So there was a lot of like infighting between people and everything. So yeah. I kind of like, went off and kind of did my own sphere. So I think there's that mix still. There's the people that are like in the like cliquey side of podcasting, and there's always this like back and forth between different groups of people. And then there's the other group that kind of just hovers in their own sphere and, has their own couple people that they interact with. But, for the most part, if you're existing in your own sphere, I don't even hear about any of this beef anymore. Besides, of course, sitting back and watching the Bigfoot people fight, but that's always just a constant thing.
I was gonna say that's mostly what I see is the Bigfoot people. There's been, and then the conspiracy people have been both of them have always fought, but I've been seeing it a lot more lately, and they're people that I don't even know, to be honest with you. So I mean, I don't care. But it seems more like the paranormal community, or the people that are into the ghosts and stuff, the ghost hunting. There's like nothing over there as far as I could tell. But I do like how they gotta throw with the conspiracies. Like, if you don't believe in the same conspiracies I believe in, you're what the fuck is the word? God damn it! Every time I go to say this, I fucking always forget, and then it's always like a day later. I'm like, oh yeah, controlled opposition. That's what it is. You're
Controlled
controlled
opposition.
opposition because you don't believe in the same exact conspiracies that I do.
Dude, speaking of that, you want to get into some like weird conspiracies. Have you been not to get too political because I'm sure a lot of people don't want to hear about it, but have you been watching any of the psyop weird stuff going on with like the LA riots? Because there's one particular picture I want to draw attention to.
Let's see it. Do you want to share? You can share it if you have it.
I should be able to screenshot here because I did bring it up purposefully so that I could show you if you brought it up. So, okay, so talking about conspiracies, you know, this very famous picture of the guy standing on the car holding the Mexican flag that was supposedly during these riots. So I was talking to who was it? Somebody recently. Oh, it was Magic Mike on our Big Dumb Mouth podcast because I popped on that show the other day. And he was talking about this idea that there's, all right, on this car, there's Enol 93 written here. And he was talking about in the occult, this is supposed to talk about this idea about like the time of chaos, the time of disorder.
Mhm.
So, you know, if there's all of these weird little things that are popping up, like who would have taken the time to research enough into occult philosophy to find the specific passage, to put it on this car specifically to be able to make this the most famous picture of what's happening with the riots? Like, when you start diving into this conspiracy stuff, I mean, there's definitely coincidence, but there's also stuff that's just like too odd to not be something. Like, why is somebody specifically painting this on this car? Like, that's strange. And like you bring up, there's a lot of chaos within the community too, which I feel like has been a huge front when it comes to a lot of this stuff is, you know, this independent media community kind of going back and forth with mainstream, you know, media type communities. So, I mean, on the flip side of it, man, like it would make sense to start trying to psyop things to create like infighting within the community if you're trying to essentially usher in this age of chaos, which seems to be pretty prevalent lately. That, you know, originally they kind of had it where it was like, all right, they had people fighting between races, but now we're getting to a point, dude, where we're so backlashed from like, all right, you're either pro this or pro that, or pro this or pro that, or pro this or pro that, or pro this or pro that. So there's no like common ground, like two different sides anymore. Like there's so many like influx sides that you can be on the one side of this, but you can be on the other side of this. And now these people that are on this thing don't want to interact because of that. So there's just so much like chaos now that I feel like they're getting it to a point where it's not split between like two groups anymore. Like there's so many different splits and division within that group that it's just constant chaos all the time, man, which is just a more of another reason to exist within your own sphere and, you know, kind of just take in your people and not don't fall for the mental manipulation and brainwashing, man.
Absolutely, dude. So, I literally just posted about the fucking riots on my Facebook, so I'm kind of glad that you brought it up because I'd have seen that exact picture, didn't think anything of it. But I think it's really interesting to wave the flag that of the country that you're running from and burning the flag of the country that you want to stay in. That's always been because they've done it before. This isn't the first time. Just these riots is not the first time they've done it. Also, I want to point out that just because we're deporting illegal immigrants does not mean they're fucking black and brown people. They're also white. So they're all also European fucking illegal immigrants here that we are also deporting. Actually, when they first started doing deportations, they had ICE had arrested a man that was wanted in Europe. I can't remember exactly what country, but he was wanted in Europe. He was white, and he was wanted for pedophilia ring. For a pedophilia ring he was running in Europe. And that didn't get national news. I feel like that's a very good thing. We deported this guy back to his country so that they could try him and detain him over there.
It's controlling the media message, man. I mean, down to the fact that the main pictures that are coming out of this LA riots are people that are waving the Mexican flag. I mean, what not a better way to make the side that's against it more angry about it. Like if you're trying to stir people up and get people angry, like you got to psyop people to some extent. And considering that there's all these weird little like markings that are written on cars, and it reminds me a lot of January 6th, where you had the people that were like showing up and kind of inciting stuff, getting stuff rolling. And like with a lot of these riots, there was people that were claiming that people were showing up with like pallets of bricks and everything like that. So, the point I'm trying to get at, I know a lot of people are pissed off about, the guy waving the Mexican flag, but keep in mind that more than likely that was intended to be the main picture that gets shown, because it's the main thing that is going to piss the most people off and get people back into that mainstream news feed where they want to sit here and they want to know what's going on with the riots, what's going on over here, what's going on over there. Like, I'm sure that there probably was multiple people with flags, but I'm sure that it started with somebody inciting it. And seemingly most of the people that are in this picture, there seems to be that main one that gets shown on everything. And you got to guess at some point that if they take these perfect pictures at these perfect moments and they have these weird markings in them, like more than likely it's probably a staged picture in order to, again, control the media narrative on this type of thing.
Just like the January 6th shit.
So you just got to keep in mind that, don't get too angry, because remember that's the intention behind this shit. They want to make you angry.
And also, I've talked to a few people that live in LA, and these riots are literally only like this small section. It's like,
but they're making it look like it's all of LA.
Exactly.
Media manipulation, bro.
Exactly. That's why I'm bringing it up, because like a lot of LA, they're like, I don't see anything. But if you watch the news, it looks like it's all over the fucking place. Same
with this No Kings protest that's supposed to be happening. Well, as of us recording this tomorrow, they're trying to stir it up to make it seem like it's going to be something huge. And on the flip side, dude, if a lot of people turn out, how hard is it that they have one insider that's going to throw a brick, and then the next thing you know, you have riots all over the country? Like, I think this can go one of two ways. It's either one, a fear tactic, because they're trying to see what's going to happen, how much they can put people in fear when nothing happens. Or on the flip side, if people seem like they're edgy, there's going to be some random dude that shows up and throws a brick, and then it's all going to be fucking hell from there. And it may not be in every city, but I think that there's a few target cities that they probably more than likely will try to turn this into something bigger than it is. Because even on the flip side, dude, when it comes to any protest, logically speaking, if you're trying to stop a protest from happening, because regardless if it's a peaceful protest, like it's still in the middle of town, people are blocking the streets, people are doing this. If you're trying to just break apart a protest, you can't actually go in and start pulling people apart or doing anything. In order to be able to actually do some type of force on this thing, you have to kickstart a reason for that to happen. And it's definitely been seen through history that, there's this protest happening. They'll have one guy that dresses up like he's part of the protest. And then next thing you know, like a brick gets thrown and then all hell breaks loose. And they wouldn't have been able to control it until they get in the middle of it and start it up. Same shit that you saw on January 6th, man, that, the main guy who was sitting there saying, all right, let's storm the Capitol. Like, he was like one of the only people that didn't end up actually facing any jail time, and they didn't end up actually going back into him. And little do you find out later on that like most of these guys, he ends up having government ties, and it's like, all right.
Fed, yeah. He was
he's a fucking Fed the whole time, man.
Yeah. It's
the only difference you see is that the left is a little bit better at protesting because they are really good at rioting, where on the other side, like you see on January 6th, when you have a bunch of the right, they're kind of like, all right, here's a riot. And then you have people that are just carrying out podiums because they really just don't know what to do in these situations because they don't go there very often,
Good point. I find it so funny that anything that Trump does, everybody that either you were left or that you just didn't like Trump, and like everything that he does is just completely bad. Which, granted, my listeners know that I voted for him. I'm gonna be completely transparent on that. I did. Doesn't mean that I like everything that he does, and I'm not gonna sit here and waste my breath to trying to defend something that I don't believe in either. So if he does something that I don't like fucking what's going on right now, fucking Iran is counter-striking Israel, and United States Army military is defending Israel after Israel. So Israel
Kiss the
bombed
wall.
Iran. Exactly.
They all kiss the wall, man.
Israel bombed Iran. So Iran is counter striking, and America's out there. I mean, fucking the United States military's out there like, let's defend these guys, even though they're the ones that shot first. Like, no, motherfucker. Like, why are we fucking on our knees bowing to Israel? That's the one thing that I don't get.
That's a whole other conspiracy and a whole other can of worms, man. Don't get me rolling on that shit, because I'm sure that there's going to be a pocket of listeners that don't like where that goes. And I don't mean anything that gets into what you guys think it is, because like most things, you got to take into consideration that it's kind of like the occult, man. Like when it gets into Freemasonry, for example, you know, the guys at the bottom, the guys that are hanging out, they're doing fundraisers and shit, they don't really know what's going on. It's almost like a pyramid scheme. You know, you protect yourself within a group that doesn't know what the fuck is going on. And the people at the top are the ones that are actually controlling the entire thing going on. So when you start talking about, without giving too much away, like the group of people that we're talking about, it's not the group of people. It's the specific elites that are at the tippy top. Then they have a specific name, and you can follow them with a fucking marker through history, bouncing into different places. Those are the people that everybody's referring to with all of this hate speech that the other side likes to say is hate speech. It's not hate speech for that group as a whole. It's this specific elite group, which can be said the same for anything else, man. It's like the elites in America. Like, we're not hating on the entire group of America or Americans. We're hating at those capitalist elites up at the top. Like, it's just they pyramid schemed us all into it where everybody hates America as a whole, but it's like, it's these specific guys up here, which is the reason why everybody hates us.
Yeah. I love my country. I dislike my government. You know what I mean? And even though I did participate in the vote, obviously, like I just stated, but if I could fucking be more free and have less government, I would be all for that. And like taxes, like we're so riddled with fucking taxes is ridiculous. And that's a whole nother thing that I could get into, but I'm not going to. But I will say this: Chat GPT, I do like all my imagery through Chat GPT, right? And I asked it just randomly. I was just like, I don't know. I don't know what sparked my curiosity in this. I was watching videos on the riots and stuff like that, and I just got interested, and I asked it to make an image of the American flag burning, and it did. So the American flag on fire, it shows me. And then I asked it to show me the Mexican flag on fire. Well, actually, all in one. I said, show me, can I have an image of the Canadian flag, the Israel flag, the Palestinian flag, the Ukrainian flag, and the Mexican flag on fire? And it said, no, that violates policy. And I said, why does that violate policy? And it said, because something like it's targeting a group of people or something like that. And I said, so you will make an image of the American flag on fire, but you won't make an image of any other flag on fire. And I said, what about the pride flag? And it said it told me like legit that the pride flag is protected, which is fine. I'm not against anybody or any other group. I'm not against any other country in any kind of way. But
it's like the principle,
right? It's so that's the only reason why I was asking ChatGPT all these questions. So, and I said, but you just made a image of the American flag on fire. You don't think that offends anybody? And then it said it can't make any images of any flags of any nation that represents anybody on fire. And I was like, you just made an image of the American flag on fire. And it said, yes, I realized that I have. And it like gave me this like weird fucking thing. And I was just like, this is ridiculous. I wrote to it. I said, everybody in America this flag represents everybody in America. So for it not to show the pride flag burning is really interesting, because that only represents a group. But I guess the pride flag represents everybody from every country, I guess, that is a part of that community too. So, and again, I don't want to burn a fucking pride flag. It was just I was just going through the motions with ChatGPT, and the only flag that it would show me an image of burning was America. But here in America, well, United States, because everybody's like, oh, well, fucking America isn't just fucking the United States, it's everything. I was like, yeah, that's why fucking the Gulf of America makes more fucking sense.
Yeah, considering it's North America, South America, like it
And
incorporates like the entire continent. It's not just because the United States of America only gets the name America in it because it is the United States of the continent of America.
Exactly. Exactly. So I don't know. I just find it really funny, and it reminds me of when I was watching. You remember the I can't. Was it Orlando, the gay club shooting? It was years
Orlando.
ago.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like maybe like 5 years ago, I want to say.
No, I think it was a lot longer than that. I think it was like.
Was it that recent one where it was like that weird psyop where a lot of people were claiming that the bodies coming out were like mannequins and shit?
Fuck, dude, I don't know, but I want to say it was like 2015 ish area. I think it was before Trump's first time in office, I think.
Maybe it's further back than I thought it was, but I don't know. Yeah, maybe we were talking about the same one, but I remember one in Orlando where there was like a lot of like weirdness to it.
Yeah. Well, so I can't remember. Anyway, so I remember I was watching the news, and these reporters were there, and people were like running and stuff like that, and I was like, that's weird. Reporters are already on the scene. And there was these two guys,
like they got a call beforehand.
Right. And then these two guys were helping somebody who like tripped and fell or something. None of these people in this group were shot or anything, and this reporter's trying to ask this guy questions. He's like it's our rendition of it's like our rendition of 9/11. I was like, are you not American? Because if you're not American, sure. But if you're American, 9/11 is your rendition. Like 9/11 is your like I don't that didn't make any sense to me. And I remember watching.
According to him, there was no gays in the tower during 9/11, which assumably there probably was some people that were gay in the tower. So
like
universal across America.
Right. Statistically, there was bound to be at least a handful within those fucking 7 buildings, actually, to be honest.
Depending on the business, there might even be a giant pocket. I mean,
exactly. So it like blew me away. Like right then and there, I was like, these people think that they're separate from the country. That's what it is. And I'm really sorry to go down this fucking rabbit hole with you randomly, but like, and to like maybe even bore some of the listeners with political stuff or whatever. But I know a lot of people listen kind of agree with me, or else they wouldn't fucking listen.
See, but that's not to get into another like whole side tangent too, but that's kind of like another whole like weird psyop is that it's one of those things that whites have become universally probably like the most hated group of people in America for the most part.
Yeah.
And with that, of course, you get groups of people that don't feel like they belong to a group. So they want to belong to something. So they end up becoming part of another cause. And when they become part of that other cause, that becomes their thing. That becomes like their main focus. Like this is what becomes them. So in turn from doing that, you end up taking on this other flag that is more meaningful to you in the individual sense than it is for the broader range of everybody as the entire country. So in turn, you end up losing track of that United States flag representing all of us as a whole, and instead you become fixated on only representing your small group, your small community, because it's something that you can hold close and personal to you, which I think is been part of this whole like separation that's kind of happened, is that they've made it so that everybody feels like they belong in these little groups. And when everybody belongs in these little groups, it's kind of like we were talking about earlier, stuff starts becoming chaotic because people can't back up the same things because, you know, you may be part of this group, but you don't agree with the part of this group. But there's so many different scattered groups, and people can be members of multiple groups now that it's hard even within those groups for people to fully get along. And that's something you're seeing even with you know, the community like you were just kind of talking about. You know, it's kind of like there's like the transgender, there's all of those kind of groups. And then there's, of course, like the for lack of a better term, just, you know, like gay guys and gay women. And, you know, I've talked to enough guys that are part of that group that have said that they're kind of like they don't feel like they're part of that anymore. It's almost like they've been like pushed out because what they are like isn't enough for the group anymore. Like they don't want people that are specifically like, all right, this is what I like. They want people that are kind of like fluid with a bunch of different stuff. So even within that, it's like they're getting pushed out of that group. So all these different groups are just becoming more and more segregated and divided, and they're even causing infighting within groups that would normally typically get along with each other.
Yeah.
But the more flags you create, the more people hold true to that, and everything is represented with the flag nowadays. So when every single thing is represented by a flag, people start losing track again of that flag that represents everybody as a whole. And everybody wants to shout me, and they don't want to hear the us as a whole. But universally, I mean, we're a giant community of people that are trying to coexist and live together. So at a certain point, you need to stop saying me, and start saying us as a whole. Let's figure this shit out all together, because we're all stuck here together. So let's make the best of this shit.
Everybody has that main character complex these days. You know,
Which is after that whole thing that happened a couple years ago, people just kind of center laned into their own life. I think that kind of divided people off from having that community sense, and it still hasn't fully established yet.
Yeah, I agree with that. Fuck, I was gonna say something, I forgot. Yeah, we all have different backgrounds. Nobody has the same life experiences. So to say that we're all gonna get along all the time, 100% of the time, we're gonna agree on everything is fucking nonsense. And trying to push people to agree on a certain thing is also nonsense, because I think the world would be really boring if we agreed on everything.
Ain't that the truth? I mean, I feel like there's never going to be a great government system that fully accompanies everybody, because here's the thing. People think we live in a democracy. We don't live in a democracy. We live in a republic, because a democracy means that every single person gets to vote. And when every single person votes like that, what ends up happening is it's just mob rules. And everybody doesn't want mob rules. So, I mean, that is essentially what a democracy is. So technically we are a republic. But even with the idea of republic, it's like, again, you have so many dividing views that everybody just constantly counterbalances each other, and nobody ends up getting anywhere with it. So like, there's never going to be a functioning government system that sustains a large number of people. I feel like the only way that a government system can sustain properly is in smaller groups that have like-minded beliefs. But again, the problem is you resort back to these smaller groups, and then what ends up happening? One group becomes bigger than the next, and then they start taking over the other groups, and then we're back in the same circle. So, you know, the whole idea of revolution, just the word in itself, revolution means a circle. Like, it's continuous. It's never going to end. And as far as these political systems go, there's never going to be a perfect one. It's never going to end. And it's always just going to be this constant thing that is just this constant battle until we eventually get to a point, hopefully, where we can, you know, be moral enough to be able to police ourselves and not require any type of governmental system.
Yes. Again, I was listening to one of my friends' podcasts. They're a true crime podcast, and they asked a question: do you think that society will ever get to a point where, you know, true crime isn't a thing anymore? You know, and I was like, and thinking about it, I was like, I don't think we ever will have a society where murder does not happen. Because people are too emotional. And like, it's weird what cracks certain people, because some people could take certain things and be fine with it, where other people that same thing could happen to and they would just snap immediately. You know what I mean?
But I mean, when you start getting into like those type of people too, I mean, there's definitely people that are just born with something that's a little bit different in their mind, where they don't feel that empathy. Because that's even the other flip side, is that people feel too much emotion, so they end up resorting to crimes and murder. But on the flip side, if you don't feel any either, then you feel no empathy for people, and then you end up becoming a serial killer again. But I think it's one of those things that it's always going to exist within society, because there's going to be that person that feels no empathy, and that person that feels no empathy is going to go, all right, it's kind of hard to become a serial killer in this time. I'm going to take this as a challenge and see if I can pull this off, because this is something I've been talking about lately, the phenomenon of like serial killers. You know, the numbers that people were hitting at one point were like ridiculous, dude. Like, you got Gacy that was hitting like 33, and then as time goes on, these numbers start dwindling. You know, you get into the 90s and you got Dahmer that's hitting 17, And I guess it was an earlier crime, but it continued until 2005. The most notorious person in the United States was Samuel Little, which was, the choke and stroke killer. And he hit, I think it was 93 or 97 people. And that was like a continuous thing from like the 60s on to now. So that being said, with the whole idea of serial killers, I'm not trying to glorify them. I'm not trying to say like, ooh, look at this guy's fucking body count, but just the idea that people can get away with something for that long is becoming this obsolete idea. This is like, you hear about these crime stories and they're like these single crime stories because, we've advanced so much as far as technology goes, where every single thing is seen on camera. Somebody disappears, you're able to track these phones and stuff like that, as long as they don't disappear into the woods and stuff. I mean, there's definitely these little side ways that you can still kind of make this stuff happen. But on the flip side, I don't think we're ever going to hit, at least in the United States, a point where people are hitting like some of the numbers that these previous serial killers were able to do, just because of the aspect of crime prevention as it's starting to expand. And it's getting to a point where, like, you drop one piece of hair in a location and they're going to be able to track it back to you exactly. And even getting into like the AI concept of things, dude. And this is where it starts getting really, really freaky. So they starting to map out people, who they are as a person, the things that you post online, the things that you research, the things that you look up on Google, the types of websites you go on, the goods that you look at. And with that, they can start making these tick boxes in the algorithm where it's like, all right, this person looked up how to decapitate this. This person looked up how to do a medical procedure. This person looked at how to do this, how to do this. And then once they create that, they have this like profile on you that they can start saying, all right, what is the probability that this person might end up resorting to murder through serial killer means, because clearly they don't have any empathy, or because they seem to be a very emotional person. And I think that that's kind of like the precipice of where we're getting into with this like Minority Report concept that everybody's talking about, them being able to prevent crimes through AI. But I think that this will be like the grounds for it, for at least they'll be able to kind of keep an eye on somebody. So that being said, if they create this profile on somebody, they have this database where it basically says, all right, these people are somewhat probable. So a crime starts happening in this area and they start mapping out, here's his location, here's a location, here's a location. Center of these locations, they have these 5 people that are like, all right, they might fit the profile of what we've profiled as a possible serial killer. And then boom, they can start questioning those people and kind of go from there. Like, I think that'll be the dawn of it. It's not going to be like they're going to show up at your door before you even do the crime and say you're arrested because you thought about it. It's going to be a matter of a crime happens in the area and they're going to use these AI profiles on you to see if you might fit the profile. So rather than having to go out and interrogate all these people, it'll almost be like a process of being able to interrogate a larger group to find these ticking points in a lot shorter of a time using an algorithm. And as technology goes, it starts to go faster as these ideas start getting developed. So, as soon as that gets developed, it's only a matter of time before they have the next standard of being able to start checking for this kind of stuff. And I don't think it's going to get to a point of pre-crime, but maybe it'll start getting to a point where it's like people have one victim and they'll end up catching before they even get to that second victim because they already had you profiled off that first one. So serial killers would be one and done, which is kind of like how it seems to be hitting now with a lot of this stuff. And again, not to glorify serial killers. Just me personally, I'm fascinated with their psyche. That's my whole thing. But again, not to side tangent, but I just don't want to sound like I'm glorifying serial killers. Yeah, I'm very adamant about not glorifying them. I'm just fascinated with the way their mind works. Because when I listen to true crime, I don't do like standard true crime. I do like psychology true crime. So I listen to people that were like criminal profilers, stuff like that, because I'm more fascinated with like why they got to these points rather than like, oh my God, this is so cool that they did this to this person. Like, that's a little fucked up,
Yeah, like the people fucking making comic books of Jeffrey Dahmer and fucking sending him fucking letters about how amazing he was when he was in prison and shit. Like, that's weird. That's suspect, dog. That is highly suspect behavior.
I will say, though, at least from a lot of the people that I've dug into, not glorifying him or saying that he's cool or anything like that, but Dahmer mentally is probably one of the most fascinating of serial killers, just because of like not how ridiculous his crimes were, but just like his mindset while he was going through all of that. Like, I'm really fascinated with these people that end up resorting to cannibalism, and their whole idea behind it isn't like, I wanted to eat people. It's like this whole idea that they're just such a lonely person that you just want to like keep somebody. Like, I don't know, for me at least, like mentally, Dahmer is probably one of the most fascinating. Not like I'm gonna write him a letter telling him he's a cool guy, but just like I want to know how his brain ticks. Like, it's just bizarre, it's just interesting.
Yeah, maybe that's why that guy killed him in prison, because he wanted to see his brain. Because
I mean, definitely possible.
he did crack his head open.
You want to see the brain the rest of the way. I mean, even on the other side, man, I was hearing that he was going around that prison and basically being like, "Do you know who I am? I'm Dahmer. Do you know who I am? I'm Dahmer."
No, he wasn't.
So
really?
I'm sure that somebody fucking was just like, "All right, Dahmer, so big and tough, no more."
Yeah, fuck, jeez.
Even on the other flip side, man, it could have been some type of hit because he was taking out a lot of people from the African American community
mhm.
as majority of his victims. So, you know, maybe, just maybe, you know, I'm trying not to make this sound bad, but maybe there was somebody that would have had a means of taking him out on the inside. I guess that could be universal. It's
Yeah.
not specific
Well,
to any type of race. I didn't want to make it sound like that. But,
Right. I mean, it was a black guy that killed him. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly.
and even on the flip side, man, think about how many people that go to prison, indulge, so to speak, and then they come out and they realize that they were wishing they were indulging the whole time.
mhm.
So there could have been people that were
That's a good point.
involved in the community, and once they heard he was in there, he was like, "All right, fuck this guy. He's been taking out people from my community, and he just said, fuck it, he's done, one and done." Because you got the race aspect, and then you also have the community aspect on top of it.
Yeah. The thing with him specifically is I don't think that he was targeting them because of the color of their skin. I think I think that it was a time of opportunity. It was the community that he specifically lived in was predominantly non-white. So, like, I don't think he was like, I'm gonna kill this person because of this color,
See, I think it was a mix because his whole fascination was the torso specifically. Like, he was just really fascinated with like muscular features of a man's torso.
Mhm.
But on the flip side of it, the reason I say that I do think he specifically targeted the African community, I mean, one, maybe he was definitely fascinated with their bodies. But on the flip side, the reason I think he picked his apartment where he did, and the reason why he picked the people that he did, was because it was the 90s in Milwaukee. So there was a group of people that didn't really get looked at. And if you're in an apartment that's in that side of town, then if there's louder noises going on, maybe some extra stuff, like there's less likely a chance that the police are going to show up to that apartment to actually check it out unless there's something going on in the street. And also with Dahmer, there was that whole interaction where, he drilled the guy's head, put some stuff into the guy's head. The guy ended up running out, and there was the two girls that were trying to like help him out. And Dahmer came up and the police showed up and he was pretending like it was his boyfriend and stuff. And he knew full well that, again, time, people have to remember that.
True.
And serial killers aren't necessarily thinking of, oh, I'm trying to be racist right now, so this is my intention. They're just looking at a way to get out of it. And he goes, all right, there's me, an older white gentleman, and then there's these two younger African-American girls. He takes the opportunity, and also knowing that at that time, the gay community won, which he was already part of. So, I mean, of course, serial killers are going to target what they're interested in. And also just being part of the black community too, he knew that it was less likely that people were going to be looking into these missing persons because I'm going to go out and say it. His main two victims, the first two, were of course white, but I think if he started hitting white victims later on, his first two were white.
Okay.
The very first one was the kid that he picked up that was walking into a concert.
Yep.
And then the second one was when everything really hit hard. He was in the hotel room drinking and he woke up with the guy's body that got beat up, and then he ended up putting him in a bag and stuff and taking him out. So the first two were white. And that kind of sparked all of it. So it's not like he was specifically just going after this. He also went after, people that were like Asian and Mexican and stuff. But I think if he would have been hitting white people towards the end, he probably would have gotten caught a lot sooner because he got smart enough to know that in that community at that specific time period, these crimes are going to get looked into least, which is the same with why a lot of these serial killers that are into females, will go after prostitutes, is because they know that crime on prostitutes isn't looked into nearly as much as if you, abducted some office worker lady,
Mm-hmm. Which is also why they also target indigenous women. Indigenous women, because the tribe government is separate, but not separate from the regular government. So like it doesn't seem like when somebody from the tribe goes missing, it doesn't seem like they communicate very well. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. There's also a lack of reporting of missing people in the media for black and brown women specifically.
So yeah, I mean, people got to take into consideration these people that are serial killers are extremely intelligent people. There's very few serial killers that aren't intelligent, because if they weren't intelligent, they would have gotten caught after the first one or second one, and they would just be a murderer rather than a serial killer. Like if they get to the point of actually having the record of being a serial killer, they're fucking intelligent. They know how to manipulate people. They know how to work shit. So people have to keep in mind too that their brains don't work the same. They're not working in race. They're not working in that. They're working in, all right, this is the most logical target where I won't get caught. This is how I deal with it. This is how I get my need out, and then I get rid of it. They're not, there's some that specifically target people that may have connected to them, like, if they had like a girlfriend that left them that they're really, really interested in, they might target those specifically. But that's a whole other set of crimes. Like if you're somebody that strictly just has that want to be able to kill, you're going to target whatever is going to make the most logical sense that you're not going to get caught.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny that we've fallen into this conversation about specifically Dahmer. I was having this conversation the other day. I think it was with David. And we were talking about Wendigos, and he's like, "Do you think Dahmer was a Wendigo?" I was like, "I don't know." So, like, when you think about Wendigos, they're eating people, right? And they're scrawny, sickly. They become this whole like monster, and their skin's gray. Their freaking eyes are sunken in and shit. And their teeth become gnarly. Like his eyes were like going into the fucking like sinking into his skull. So do you think Jeffrey Dahmer was turning into a Wendigo?
I don't think a Wendigo necessarily, but I will say that I do definitely think he may have been consumed by something else, if you want to kind of get into the more paranormal aspect of things, because he was known for like putting on weird parts of movies. Like The Exorcist is one of his main ones, and he would watch these specific parts. And he had a few victims that would talk about how he bought these. Well, this came out in some of the tapes, but some of his victims would talk about he would sit in the corner and like watch this movie and stuff like that and just get really, really weird and creepy. But when he had his alone time, he bought these yellow contacts, and he would wear like yellow contacts and basically get himself like psyched up that he's a demon, he is evil, he is a monster, he is all this shit. So I don't think he was possessed by Wendigo necessarily, but I definitely think that there is a possibility that there was something else darker in there. Or on the other side of it, dude, maybe some of these people are just naturally born like that, and it's just a matter of like letting that monster out once they get to a certain point in life, and maybe there's certain people that no matter what happens, that monster is going to eventually come out. And then there's other people, like you said, they can go through the same experiences and not have the same side effects, because maybe there was just never that spark in them that was going to get sparked in the first place. Just a matter of what's going to finally get that shit ignited. It could be something as small as like with Dahmer, where he drank a bit too much, and the next thing you know, he woke up with a dead body, and then after that, you just start embracing the fact that you're evil. And then, if you're being taken over by something else, at that point, you're just inviting it in the rest of the way.
True. Yeah, that's a good point. But
I think it was more demonic than anything.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
whatever people want to classify as demonic, I think it's kind of like a broad thing. I think that there is this presence, this like evil, and it all gets kind of perceived through different religious lenses. So everybody kind of has different names for these things, but we're clearly all talking about the same thing under a different name. But there's this dark, whatever you want to call them, demons, that I think that may have been connecting with him or in him from the start.
Yeah. There's been a few people that I bring demons up, and they're just like, Christians invented demons, blah 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 blah, and I'm like, regardless of who invented the fucking word, I think there's always been some kind of evil or negative entity, because you can't have positive without negative anyway.
What's funny is the word demon comes from Old Greek, which is kind of funny all on its own, because they had their own pantheon of things. Because it was actually like daemon. So it was I don't remember what exactly the breakdown is, so I'm not going to try to pretend like I do at the moment. But I did look it up at least. It does come from Old Greek.
Yeah.
So I mean, even beyond that, it was already a word that kind of existed in some form, before the Bibles were getting chronicled.
Yeah. It's I don't know. It's interesting too to me, because I was going to kill somebody Not saying that I wanted to specifically, but I went with the. So I'll tell you the story. So I'm not gonna get into the specifics because this happened. Anyways, my stepdad, um, turns out not a fantastic dude. My sister reported him. My mom took his side. Um,
Weird how that happens. I've been in the same, not exactly with the part with your sister, but stepdad's not being out what they turn out to be, and the mom siding with them. It's kind of a weird
yeah,
reoccurring thing.
very very strange. So my dad wrote up this signed an order that we weren't allowed to be around him. So there, in turn, we weren't allowed to be at the house. So and I've recently started talking about this situation even more. I'm not particularly close with my mother anymore. Not that I don't dislike her or anything. It's just, she's not my cup of tea. And if she wanted to be around, she would be, but she's not. So that's its own thing. But anyways, I was 15. And I packed up my bag. I had my school bag, and I just put a couple knives in the bag in different pockets, because my line of thinking was, I'm gonna go there. My If he knocks it out of my hand, I want to be able to have access to another one. And if my mom takes it from me, or whatever, or if I'm in the middle of the act and it gets lodged or stuck and I don't have it anymore, I need another one. So I brought several, and I got off my bicycle and I walked up to the door. The door's locked, so I start knocking, and my mom opens it like this much. She's like, "You're not supposed to be here." And I was like, "Why?" I was like, "I need to come inside." And she's like, "No, you don't. You're not allowed to be here." And I could hear him behind her. And he said something. I don't know what the fuck he said, but I like it. Like, in that moment, I was like, do I push through her? I was like, because either way, like, I'm either gonna have to fight her to get inside, and then I'm gonna have to get into my bag somehow. So do I get into my bag first? What do I do? And then I ended up just being like, all right, and I left. And like, I never gave it like really much of a second thought, but I've been thinking a lot lately. Like, had I been able to get inside, first of all, I'd be a completely different person than I am right now if this went down the way that I had planned it. And I don't know that once I got to that level, because I would have been so like tunnel visioned on dispatching him, that I don't know if because my mom definitely would have tried to intervene. I don't know if I would have like not done it to her too. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? So I I I don't want to kill any. This is the only person that I ever wanted to physically do this to. And I mean, I've come to terms with it. I've healed. Therapy. My sister's healed from it. As long as my sister's good, that's all I care about. So, but I also thinking about it, that if I had done it, my sister would have been even more upset and traumatized.
What's messed up though is that is, weirdly enough, one of the things that kind of starts some of these chains. Like, I was literally just listening to a podcast earlier about this guy, that it wasn't necessarily him that got sexually abused, which is usually the motif with a lot of these people, especially the ones that are sadists. They were, sexually abused as children.
Yeah.
But, this particular guy wasn't. But he had that spark in him, and it happened to somebody that he cared about. So it started this whole chain. And then once he started, it got to a point where he couldn't stop, where it was like he was only going after specific people that were like known pedophiles. And by the end of it, he was just kind of like, somebody would just say, "Oh, that guy's a pedophile," and then he would just go after him and kill him. Like, there was no like rhyme or reason. Like, it ended up getting to a point where like it was more about the killing than the actual,
Yeah.
Vigilante act. So it's one of those things, like you said, like, once you're in that mood and you're already there and you are already in the middle of the action, like, you get blinded by things. And then once you already have done it, then that barrier's been broken. And if you have that capacity to do that, then you're probably going to continue doing it, because as messed up as this sounds, I kind of imagine it almost like heroin, in the extent that if you have that urge for that, even if you don't realize it.
Mhm.
When you do it, it's probably going to be this like euphoric high like you've never experienced before. And just like heroin, for example, like once you hit that, you're going to keep doing whatever you can to get to that same peak again, even though you may never actually hit that same peak again. But, you know, if you're a normal moral person, then you're going to end up feeling regret, of course, after all this goes down, the adrenaline goes away and everything. But if you're not, then you're going to realize very quickly that that's that euphoric high for you. And then it's just going to be any excuse that you can to do this act again.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so that's I've been thinking about that a lot. Like, would I have been one of those, you know? Would I have been the one that after this happened, would I have kept doing it or finding reasons to do it? Or I mean, I definitely would have went to jail if I did this. And again, I'd be a completely different person than I am right now.
But here's the messed up part, though. If you would have had that kick in, you know what your court defense would have probably been was the fact that, you know, something had happened to your sister, and that is an opportunity where you can use like that lapsed moment of judgment.
Yeah.
So there are people that might end up getting like manslaughter for that instead of actually like murder. And when you get manslaughter, you know, you could get off in 6 years and be back out. And if you're back out and you realize that was that high, of course you're going to like keep it subtle. But as soon as you get back out, man, because you got off on manslaughter, it's going to kick back up again, dude. This shit happens all the time with these serial killers, man. Like they'll have track records of the crimes that they're end up becoming notorious for committing. But when they're first starting to act on these things, they don't realize it. And these first couple acts end up making them get better at it and actually, you know, going to jail for these things. Because then when they go to jail, they take the opportunity to talk to other people that have committed murders and see what they did wrong, what may have been this, what may have done that. And they end up coming out a lot more insightful on how to be a serial killer than if they never got in that little bit of trouble in the first place that they were able to kind of get off with. Like, it ends up creating a worse scenario every time.
Yes. Yeah. Fuck, dude. I'm glad it didn't happen. I'll say that.
Yeah, me too. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing the show right now.
We wouldn't be.
There wouldn't be where the weird ones are. There would just be the prison shanker.
The prison shanker. The prison shanker. My sister.
Take that how you will.
Yeah, my sister and I talked about it a couple years ago. And I told her for the first time about me going over there and stuff, and she didn't know. I didn't tell anybody. I went back to my dad's house, took the knives out, and put all the knives away, and I was just like, oh, well, that was scary. And then I went to bed and never thought about it again. And then both of my other brothers are friends with this guy on Facebook, and I think that's when I brought it up to my sister. So it was like it was like 10 years ago now, maybe even longer. And I noticed that my brothers were friends with him on Facebook, and I was just like, what the fuck is this shit? And dude, I fucking commented on one of my brother's things, and he commented under my comment, and I was just like, what the fuck is this shit? And I got fucking pissed off. And so then I told my sister, I was like, did you know that Chris and Ryan are both, you know, friends with him? And she's like, I did not know that. And I was like, that's kind of fucked up, don't you think? And she goes, yeah, it is a little bit. And then I told her about that night that I went over there, and that my mom basically was like, she basically kept the door shut. Like, I could see one eyeball.
Do you think she subconsciously knew, or do you think that he subconsciously knew that? I mean, dude, I'm just going to assume what you were saying without actually saying what may have happened. But if that thing that I'm assuming happened, dude, that guy has to assume that somebody's going to try to come and kill him. It's either going to be the dad or it's going to be the brother. So if either of them show up, like,
yeah. And I was already violent. I was already getting in school fights. I was getting expelled. I had already gone to juvie once for fighting. You know, I broke a kid's fucking cheekbone as I was hanging out. So like, he knew that of things, and I had broken his nose.
See, and that's the thing with a lot of these people that maybe do that act. It's not actually about the act itself. It's not that they're necessarily a pedo, but rather that it's a control thing. That clearly this guy had control issues where he wanted to control every aspect of his life, which is exactly why you see these moms that start getting controlled. It's through trauma, a narcissistic trauma, that they end up being able to control these people. So it's just like a continuous thing that you see down the line, that it's just like constant struggles for control that clearly links to something way earlier in his life where he completely felt powerless. And I'm not going to say that abusers always abuse other people, but more than likely, dude, my assumption is this guy probably had something happen at some point in his life where he felt completely powerless, so he wanted to feel that same power getting pushed onto somebody else. If that makes you feel any better. More than likely, the same thing probably happened to this guy at some point.
Yeah, maybe. Probably. My kids and
usually linked to like the parents. That's usually where it goes back to.
Well, I
honestly.
know his mom died in front of him. But I'm not saying that has anything to do with what he decided to do.
That could definitely be something that has to come in with power, because he felt powerless in that moment. Yeah. So he wanted to recapture some aspect of feeling like he's in control, dude. Yeah. The brain is a weird thing, man. Like, you kind of know the fixation on what the problem is, but the question is what sparked it, because everybody's brain works a little bit differently. It could have been the exact act, or it could have just been something completely unrelated where they felt powerless, and it ends up becoming this fascination, or sometimes even a kink, where they need to feel power. They need to have somebody feel submissive to be able to, come to terms, so to speak. Not really come to terms, but come to terms in their own head with this previous traumatic moment.
Yeah. Yeah. And nobody took my sister's side at first either, which was a big problem too. But yeah, the brain works in fucking weird ass fucking ways, dude. It really does. To go from that to be standing in that doorway, and then to go right back to my dad's house and then play video games and go to bed right after, like, that was weird.
Dude, even on the other aspect of things being able to manipulate your mind, man, you want to talk about these dark forces. I feel like these things look for opportunities, and if it knew that this was this opportunity, and it was like, all right, let's put all the eggs in one basket and see what fucking happens. It may not have been something, again, if you get into the more woo-woo aspect of things, it may not have been something that was fully in your control. Like, you may have felt an emotion, you may have felt that moment for revenge, but there could have been something else that was just like, all right, this is juicy, let's put some more fucking energy in this bitch.
Well, I've had 2 mediums tell me that I have a negative attachment. And especially lately, I've been doing a lot of work to detach this attachment, and it's either almost off or just about, like, or getting there, or one or the other. But I noticed that, ever since I started talking about God and stuff more, like my son starts talking about God randomly, makes a TikTok about fucking, he posts scripture on his TikTok and stuff, and then him and I start talking about God, and then I start talking about maybe possibly getting baptized, and my son's like, I want to get baptized, and my daughter's like, I want to get baptized, and then things, like, I don't know, it's just these things start happening. So there's things going on, like my son's breaking out with this skin issue, and there's some other things going on that I'll leave personal, but it almost seems like every time you try to put your life onto this, like, right tracks, there's always something trying to pull you off of them.
Ain't that the truth, dude? That's one of those things I was going to say with these attachments is, everybody is into this idea of like removing these attachments, but I often wonder if it's something that you are able to fully do, because there's always going to be something, even if it's not necessarily attached to you, but something that's whispering in the darkness. And, maybe some of these priests that have been known for getting into some extracurricular activities, maybe they were compromised from the start, or at some point, they were, a man of faith, a man of all this. They had the most virtuous ideas. And then all it took was they had a bad thought one day, and these things use that as a seed to keep spreading this deceitful knowledge. And then next thing you know, that person's corrupt and they're committing these adult acts on children. Like, I feel like even the most holy man seems to have the opportunity to become corrupt. And it seems like you become more of a target as you start becoming holy. So even if you don't necessarily have these things attached to you, I feel like once you start kind of glowing with the light, there's a lot more things that try to whisper from the darkness. And if they find that opportunity in, man, like it's all done from there.
Yeah, for sure.
Because they're almost more interested in trying to corrupt somebody that's of the faith, because that's just, you know, almost like a double
Like a
points to them, I
badge,
think.
yeah. It's like a fucking gold star on their fucking chart.
Because then it corrupts the religion in from the outside, man.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you have one priest that ends up doing that shit, and then it ruins religion for a good portion of that entire congregation, man. Like, you know, that's like triple, quadruple points for these things, man. Like, of course, that's going to be their primary fucking target.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. You know, did you know that fucking 100% of all school shooters were on anxiety and depression medication?
Not surprised at all.
So, like, because when I mean, I knew this information, but as we're talking, and at this time when I went to go do this to my stepdad, I was on depression pills, and I had been on depression pills for a few years, and I just was like this angry, aggressive person the entire time I was on them. I never felt happy the entire time. Like, so, like, for these, and then I was doing this research, and I actually ended up coming across a video. It was either TikTok, YouTube, I don't know, something like that. And he was talking, he's like, 100% of all school shooters have been on anxiety or depression medications or both. And a lot of these medications, the side effects are aggressive, violent behaviors, suicidal tendencies, or ideation, among other things. So, like, so you're already depressed, you're already anxious, you get on these pills, all of a sudden you're talking about suicide, which I tried twice. And one of the times I tried, I was on antidepressants at the time, and that was my second attempt. So I'm not saying that these things that this medication caused me to be this way, or if I was already there, but the fact that there was a chemical imbalance that seemed to be that was trying that there was already a chemical imbalance in my brain, and to be chemically the fuck is the word that I'm looking for, induced, I guess, I don't fucking know, for this medication to be put into me that has violent symptoms, and for me to all of a sudden be violent. Like, because after I never punched anybody in the mouth before until I was on antidepressants, and I'm not blaming it on the antidepressants, but that was when the school fights and street fights started, was after that.
Well, here's a few things to think about. So I had a guest on named Jerry Marzinski, who is a psychologist who dives into like the biblical kind of connections that could possibly be tied with schizophrenia. And he had a thing where he broke it down on the show, basically talking about how the whole idea of a chemical imbalance is a completely made up thing in order to be able to sell medications, because they started producing these medications and they worked
That
in
makes
certain
sense,
cases,
yeah.
and they couldn't actually explain why they worked. So they started using this idea of a chemical imbalance, and this rebalances the brain. But he said that there's no actual scientific proof behind a chemical imbalance, because we don't know what the quote chemical balance naturally would be of the brain, because everybody's brain functions a little bit differently. And connecting it a little bit farther, it gets a little bit weirder. So obviously we have some of these like natural cures that quote were like given to us by God, right? And they were incited by God, and he was the person that said, this is the cure you need for this, this is the cure you need for this. So on the flip side of it, you start getting into the whole like pharmaceutical industry. first and foremost, you got to look at the fact that their main symbol for it is going in Hermeticism, because it has,
Yes.
Hermes' scepter with, the snakes and everything wrapped around it. You start getting into the Hermetic arts and start really realizing that this is usually the general underbelly for a lot of the occult concepts that like the Freemasons and everybody dives into, which also links into Saturn worship, which links into this, whatever demonic type being worship is, which is this thing that gives them knowledge. It's the whatever, the snake in the garden, like the thing that gave them knowledge, whatever you want to perceive this thing as. So when you start getting into some of these scientists, some of these researchers that talk about these things that, I don't know where the idea came from. It just popped into my head and all of a sudden it worked. That they're diving into some of these occult philosophies, these ideas and everything. So it's like, where are these ideas coming from for these medicines? Could they be coming from whatever this evil force is? And it's basically giving them an option to get in, because by taking and ingesting the medicine, it's basically giving this thing permission to be in your body. That's already a contract of crossing the threshold as it enters into your mouth. So you're giving these things permission. And just to extend on that even further, man, even some of the other drugs that might connect in with some demonic stuff, like, one main one that I always talk about is meth. That most people that have had these crazy meth experiences, you never hear anything other than the demons were telling me to do it. The demons told me to do this. The demons were talking to me. It's always the demons, the demons, the demons. So if people are using other spiritual things to, quote, connect to God, to connect to all of these positive entities, which, could be a facade all on its own, but we'll get into that later at some point. But, there's definitely a possibility that there is whispering in the ears of some of these people that are the reason why some of these medicines get created. And they may not even be aware of the fact that they're getting their ear whispered into, because, they just tried this and this idea popped in their head. They tried it, it worked, and here's the medicine. And now they've created this entryway for these dark things to be able to get into your body, hiding it under the facade of the mainstream medical industry, which has, again, all of these underlying tones and symbols of the occult riddled all over it.
Yeah, that's the weird thing. Like, what does a snake and a plus sign have to do with the snake and the staff and the plus sign, what does that have to do with health, with like medical? You know what I mean? I mean, the plus
I don't
sign
know about
kind
the
of
plus
makes
sign
sense,
specifically.
but like the snake and scepter is kind of weird.
See, I know at least with the actually this might even connect even farther back and make some other weird ties. So the whole like barbershop thing, where you have like the spinning barbershop,
Yeah.
like red and white symbol. So back in the day, the barber was also the person that was like the medical person that would do like medical procedures and things, and sometimes it was even the butcher
No
too.
shit.
So I believe that the red and black symbolism, or the red and white symbolism, came from those original like spinning things that would be outside of the barbershop.
Uh-huh.
And I'm pretty sure that I read somewhere else that the spinning thing outside of the barbershop is also supposed to be a representation of the snakes spinning and wrapping around Hermes' scepter. So just another connection that goes back even farther into the occult.
Cheese and rice, dog. Cheese and rice. This is ridiculous. These 13 families and stuff, they think they can hide stuff from us, but they can't.
They don't try to,
we're
man.
catching up. I don't think they're trying anymore.
I mean, the whole idea of the karma is that, you aren't responsible for the karma of your actions if you inform the other person of the actions before you do them, which is a whole aspect of the occult, that if they're going to do something, they have to tell you that they're going to do it. Otherwise, again, that bad karma falls back on them, and they don't want that. So it's a matter of, even when it gets into like the child abduction stuff, when it gets into adrenochrome, all of that kind of shit, they tell you straight up so that the karmic thing doesn't fall on them. Instead, it falls on you because you were the one that didn't see the signs.
Yeah, you didn't you didn't withdraw your consent because you watched like a movie or whatever. Like, actually, you guys just talked about this in Bizarre Inquiries with frickin' Back to the Future and 9/11.
Yeah, the whole group thought idea that it's one of those things that if there's like a traumatic event or something that's happening, or just if there's knowledge that needs to be brought to the forefront, it ends up being perceived through all of these different people. And, again, even on the other side of that, there could be a positive thing that's supposed to happen for society or a negative thing that's supposed to happen for society. But either way, this thing's supposed to come into flourishing no matter what. And it's just a matter of who picks up the message and actually runs with it. And just continuing on with that, man, it's also how people perceive it, because, why do you have these huge pockets where like 5 people will make the same concept for a movie but do it in different ways? Like, I think they're inspired by the same thing. It's just that they interpreted it in 5 different ways. And then that's why you see these fluctuations of, a bunch of the same idea for something coming out all at the same time. And then the best one survives. It's everybody got the message, and it's whoever perceived it and did it the best way is the one that continues on.
That have you seen that movie Civil War? Nick Offerman plays the president, I think.
I have not. I've been completely turned off to that guy ever since that stupid fucking Kamala song you wrote. Like, I can't even look at that dude's face. It kind of ruined all of Parks and Recs for me, if I'm being honest with you.
That was recent too, wasn't it?
Yeah, dude, that was probably one of the most cringy things I've seen in my life.
Yes.
But I will preface by saying that even on the flip side, if somebody wrote a song like that about Trump, it would be just as fucking cringy.
Just as cringe. Just as cringe. Listen,
but I always saw that dude as the muscular, tough dude, and he kind of just completely fucked it up with that stupid ass song. I'm sorry, but
yeah. I was just gonna say, do you think that we're headed to a point where people are gonna storm the White House and dispatch the president?
I mean, dude, we were talking about this on OBDM the other day. Like, the whole idea about a civil war. I think that if there would be a civil war, they're trying to make it seem like it's going to be this half of the country versus that half of the country. And the way that would work out essentially would be right versus left. And I'm sorry, at the end of the day, dude, like, the right would end up stomping the left when it comes to warfare. Like, I'm not even trying to be a dick. That's just how it's going to go.
Yeah.
But I don't think that that's the war that's going to be started. If there would be some type of civil war, so to speak, in America, it would end up being between the citizens and the immigrants, or the people that are fighting to, quote, stay here, which connects into all of this like riot stuff. And then at that point, is it even civil war in the first place if it's essentially people that are from the place that are just trying to push out people that are not from the place? But the whole idea of civil war, I think that they're trying to set the idea in people's heads, try to make people kind of normalize the concept. But on the flip side, however it ends up being dispatched, I think won't be exactly how people think it is. I think that, as much as they want to try to get the country to split, I don't think it's going to work in the way that they're intending it to. And the only viable option that I could see on how you'd have this division happen where there would be enough grounds for people to actually start some type of guerrilla warfare with each other would more than likely probably be, the citizens versus the immigrants or illegals specifically, because the people that are immigrated to this country legally, they like to leave this out in the mainstream news, but those people are just as pissed off about all these people coming in illegally because they had to go through the right means, they had to do the wraparound, they had to fight for the right to be here. So when somebody walks in, they're just as fucking irritated about it, but they leave that part out of the news, of course.
Oh, obviously, yeah, because that goes against their narrative.
What's fucked up though about the whole fucking narrative though is people don't realize it because, of course, like, the views of the parties flipped. So back, during the last Civil War, the whole idea was, one side freed the slaves and the other side wanted slaves. But the fucked up part was the Republican side was the side that freed the slaves, and the Democratic side was the side saying, who's gonna pick the fields? Who's gonna tend the fields now? Who's gonna do that? And
you want to know what's interesting? They're saying the same thing right now.
Except they're saying, who's going to pick the fruits? Who's going to do the labor? Who's going to do this? Who's going to do that? Same exact fucking argument from the same exact party, but people don't realize that the politics flipped.
Yeah. The thing with that whole thing was like, are you supporting exploiting unfair wages just because they're illegal? Is that what you want us to be okay with these people getting shit wages, which actually immigrants, I guess, only make up like 5% of agriculture. So technically we already have United States citizens picking our fruits and tending to our crops. So,
but that's the legal portion of it. How many people are not legal? Because that was like the whole thing that they were saying with correct. Like the people that are building the infrastructure, like a lot of these people that are using immigrants for construction, like, they are not documented by any way, shape, or form. So as far as it looks like on paper, that crew is like 5 people, but there's actually fucking 30 people that are there working, and it's just kind of under the thing. The pay is going to the superintendent,
yeah,
or the supervisor.
Yeah. I remember I was working for a tree company in Massachusetts, and the 2 guys that I had helping me were Guatemalans, and one of them didn't speak English and the other one spoke good enough to where I could understand him anyways. And he was talking about fucking, and no, I actually ended up talking to the boss. And we were in mid conversation. He's like, yeah, last year freaking Alex got deported and blah 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 blah. I'm like, whoa 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 whoa, what? The English speaking one got deported? He goes, yeah, he's not legal. And I was like, oh.
He really tried to blend in, though. I mean, you got to give him
Yeah,
credit.
like he was a wicked nice guy. No, nothing against him or anything. He just was not legally documented to be here. He goes, yeah, every time, like every once in a while, he tries to stay away from alcohol, but every once in a while he'll get, drunk, and sometimes he'll be out in public and be wasted, and the cops will pick him up and they'll realize that he's not a citizen and they deport him.
Dude, the messed up part is that, like, we get put under a microscope for talking about concepts like this, not realizing that fucking I could give you a list of countries that it's no ifs, ands, or buts. If you aren't here legally, then you get deported back to your country.
Absolutely.
But the focus doesn't get put on those countries. Like, I think, what was it? France is one of those countries that's doing that. There's a shit ton, dude. I saw like a list of like 30, 40 different countries that no questions, no ifs, ands, or buts. If you're here illegally, you're getting sent the fuck back. And just to even extend on that point, dude, like Japan, for example, talking about this whole idea of kind of trying to like preserve culture, because you get into this whole idea about like cultural shifts and why they could intentionally be letting a bunch of people in to try to shift the primary of the culture and everything.
Yeah.
But anyways, getting back to that, you can't talk about this idea of trying to preserve American culture without it sounding ignorant, because you're coming from the prospect or the perspective of America. And, of course we were the melting pot when we first started off, but we've developed our own culture, our own way of people, our own way of life. And, we're our own society at this point. But if we started saying like, this is an area that is specifically for citizens and immigrants, people vacationing, whatever, they're not allowed to come to this area, that's going to blow up on world news, and we're going to look like the worst fucking country in the world because we're telling people we can't go into these areas. But on the flip side, Japan has these areas that are sacred to them where they don't let any tourists in that area. They're like, this is an area that is specifically for the Japanese people, and it is part of our culture. It is preserved. There's a lot of countries that do stuff like that, but they're not under the same microscope as the United States. Like, we couldn't do the same stuff here. And, we do the same stuff that a lot of these European countries are doing, but, we get looked at like we're the worst fucking country on the planet, and we're, disrespecting people and all that stuff just because, again, we're America. We're supposed to be the melting pot. But again, that's like an outdated concept. That was like 300 years ago, dude. We are our own culture and our own people at this point.
Yeah. That's because we're the world police. People don't like the world police, and I don't understand how that ended up happening. But I mean, we're the police. The fucking the crown is the bank, and the Vatican and or Israel is our priest or whatever the fuck. I don't know. However that saying goes. But yeah, we have a base we have military bases throughout all these other countries. Would we allow another country to have a fucking military base here in the United States? Fucking no, we won't.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't.
Yeah,
it gets really interesting. And I have so many other thoughts to go on this, but I think maybe we'll save it for another time. Also, I would love to have you back for like more of like a supernatural talk, because I know we kind of went off the rails there with more of like real world shit, the real happenings of the narrative that the media likes to push. Because I will say, when Obama activated ICE back in the day and deported 3 million immigrants, nobody was rioting in the street over it. Okay. So I mean,
it's about who does it.
That's exactly what
going
it is.
into like the Trump thing, you had Kamala that was saying, we're going to give a credit that's $3,500 to anybody that, has a family, needs help, all this shit. And then Trump comes out and he's like, all right, we're going to give $5,000 to anybody that wants to have a baby on their taxes, blah, 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 blah. And then the other side turns into, oh, he's trying to force us to have children. He's trying to do this. It's the Handmaid's Tale. It's like, dude, as far as I'm saying, They're basically saying the same fucking thing, just in two different ways, and you're just looking for a reason to be angry.
It was the same thing with the
fucking
taxes.
tips on taxes.
Yes, no taxes on tips. He's like, no, Kamala. Well, he said it first. He's like, no taxes on tips, and everybody's like, he's just trying to make more money for the rich. And then Kamala says the same exact thing, and they're like, oh, she's for the people.
And that just goes into the point, man, of just to state where I'm at politically. I'm not left wing. I'm not right wing. My views may lean a little bit as far as like the views are more right wing,
Yep.
but I'm not necessarily part of any party. I'm the People's Party. I'm the thing that makes the most logical sense. And perfect point, like I was trying to get around to. Left wing, right wing, it's all part of the same bird. They all have the same answers, the same responses. It's just pick your poison on which way you want to receive it. But they're both inevitably going to end up in the same place.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say the same thing. Like I've said it 100 times on the podcast now. If I had to label myself, I would be probably conservative. But I will say there's things on the left that I agree with, and there's things on the right that I agree with. I guess, like, view and opinion wise, I guess would be more of a conservative standpoint. But I did vote for Obama. And then I was like, I should not have done that. But either way, even if I didn't vote or voted the other way, he still would have been president anyway, regardless. So,
see, my whole thing with politics is like I was originally saying that I was like a libertarian at first, but I don't think I fully quite like placed exactly where my political standings are.
Yeah.
But I had a really good conversation with Charlie Robinson from Macroaggressions, and he kind of explained the whole idea that of anarchist, what exactly an anarchist is, and the whole idea that people think it is just like outright chaos.
Yeah.
You know, everybody just out for themselves, out for this, out for that. He basically explained to me the whole idea between like the anarchist convention that they have out in Mexico every year and everything, and everybody's like view on what true anarchy is, and the whole idea is no slaves, no masters. And after kind of hearing that statement about self-governing, you know, everybody takes care of themselves, but they also take care of each other as a community, I kind of honestly could say that probably my farthest political leanings that I kind of fall into is anarchist, because I can't necessarily pick the views of any specific ones. But what I can say at the end of the day, and the reason why I did say libertarian, is because I'm for full freedom of speech. I'm for full freedom to choose whatever you want to do. But on the plus side of it, that I don't feel like would fully work with libertarian, but definitely works with anarchist, is that I'm definitely in the aspect of, say you have a pedophile in your community. Rather than trying to put them through the legal system, do all of that type of stuff, at a certain point, man, it's better just to come together as a community and just get rid of the problem. And that's kind of the whole idea with anarchy, is that it's like everybody takes care of each other, but of course, if there's a problem, you know, you get rid of the fucking problem as a community together.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But no slaves, no masters, man. That's the way to live.
That's what I want. Like, I own my own house. If I stop paying taxes, the government's going to take it. So
even if you pay off your house completely, you're still paying for the land that it's on, even though you quote own the land.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, man, we'll have to do this again. So if you don't mind letting the good people know where they can find you and your show real quick.
Absolutely, man. And on a side note, I've been listening to my news and political podcast today, so I apologize that I came in with that mindset. Next time before I get onto the show, I'll make sure that I listen to more of the paranormal, cryptid-related stuff, so we can get into a conversation about that. But, you know, if you guys like the wide variety of conversations getting into, you know, the extraterrestrials, the cryptids, the paranormal, and also some of these conspiracies, some of this political stuff, then you guys can always go and check out my show, Inquiries of Our Reality with Shayn Jones. That is the solo show that I do that is open conversation interview style. And if you guys are more into the deep dive style and you guys have enjoyed Oren, who I believe has also been a guest on this show a few times, then you guys can check out our show that we do together. That is Bizarre Encounters with Shayn and Oren. Make sure you guys look that up specifically, because there was a podcast that popped up a couple years ago that still hasn't gotten rid of their page, even though they only released 2 episodes that they decided to call Bizarre Encounters Podcast after we'd been running for 2 years. So Bizarre Encounters with Shayn and Oren. And if you guys like the more open style, joking, fun, button mashing adventures that we get on YouTube Live, you guys can always go and check out our other show, Bizarre Inquiries, over there on YouTube. But the easiest way to find every single thing that I do is all off of one link tree, which is quick and easy. And that link tree is linktr.ee/open_minds_media. And also, may I say, I really appreciate you inviting me to the show, man. It was a fun conversation. I know it didn't necessarily steer probably where your show typically goes, but you know, it's definitely a fun conversation all the same.
Hey man, it's all good. I get into this shit every once in a while, which actually is really interesting to be coming right after Alice Red Pill because we talk politics. She has a MAGA hat and everything. So
At least we broke into some serial killers and psychology for a
oh
little
yeah,
bit. So we did get a little bit of a break and got into a little bit of
there
weird
was a
stuff. And
lot
we
of
did talk
weird.
about demon possession with that. So we at least gave a little bit of something for everybody.
For sure.
That's what I was saying in the beginning, man. I never know where it's going to go with you. You know, you put me on the spot and I don't know what to say directly. But once you get me going, dude, we'll end up covering 10 different topics and they'll flow into each other somehow.
I
perfectly.
love when you get going, man. I love listening to you talk, which is why I listen to your shows. So anybody not listening to Shayn's shows, you're missing out. I definitely think they're worth a checking out. Even though I do think that he should stop reading.
Were you the one that left that comment?
I didn't know that my name wasn't involved with it because so my name is on the Apple one, but on Spotify, so I wrote it. I was like, I mean, obviously fucking with you, but like, and then you read it, and then you didn't say my name with it, and I was like, why didn't he let everybody know that I fucking wrote it? So I went back in there, and it's just a bunch of numbers. I was like, oh, I'm not gonna tell him. I'm just gonna leave it.
I've been wondering who that was the whole time, but on the plus side, it did lead into a pretty good joke in a further episode.
It did. I like how you use it. I was like, well, at least he's not taking it the wrong way, so that's a good thing.
CP, even if people troll, dude, I'll just inevitably end up turning it into a joke because that's how I cope with it regardless.
Same. I've had people try and correct my grammar and shit like that. Like, I say anyways a lot, and they're like, it's anyway. I'm like, anyways. So like literally the next episode, somebody said it, and I was like, literally the next episode, the first thing I said, anyways.
See, my issue with reading, bro, I just need to slow down a bit because as you can probably see from this conversation, or if people at least listen to the podcast sped up, I talk really fast. I don't intentionally mean to, so I process things kind of quickly. So that being said, when I read in my head, I read really, really quick.
Yeah.
But when I read and I try to read out loud,
and speak,
my brain moves faster than my mouth does, and I end up stumbling over shit. So I know that the secret to me being able to read properly is to slow down. It's just I'm used to talking a specific way on a show, so I get my voice going, and once I get going, I talk fast. I don't do it like intentionally. It's just what happens. Like I get faster as I go on complete accident. But when I read to my kids, dude, and I'm doing voices and shit, I'm reading slow. I don't have any issues. Like I'll flow right through that shit. No fucking problem. I just need to learn to slow down a bit when I'm reading on the show, and I'm sure that I would be totally fine.
You're fine anyway.
Remember, my mouth doesn't move as fast as me reading.
You're fine anyway. You just pause sometimes, and that's what I was playing off of. But it's not a problem. I don't think it's a problem anyway. I was just fucking with you, but
I like when Adam Sandler interrupts though. It's kind of fun. He's kind of a dick, man. He says some dickish shit, but I'm hoping that it's all in good fun.
Shyamalan or Shyamalan, I don't know. But yeah, so I wish you were going to Tennessee because I'd love to see you, but I will be seeing Oren and Jenny. I believe Riley's gonna be there. Yeah, in Gatlinburg, I think.
Crypticon. Was it Crypticon? Is that what's going on?
No, the Bigfoot conference in Gatlinburg.
Oh yeah, the one that Oren was talking about. Yeah. I think Riley mentioned that he was going.
I think Riley has stated it. Man,
I've been a bit broke this year, so I don't think I'm gonna be able to make it out to any events this year, unfortunately. But maybe next year. I'm just trying to get out of some debt holes, and once I get out of some debt holes, then I'll be a little bit easier for myself in the future. But that being said, I got so much in a debt hole from doing fucking conventions the last 3 years that I just had to take a year break from it to try to catch back up from it. So hopefully next year I'll be back in circulation, unless there's, one that's reasonably close. Like I wish they were doing Small Town Monsters Fest again this year, but they're not, unfortunately, because that was just super close and convenient to my house.
Yeah.
And it was also just like a single day trip. Like I only stayed out there last time just because, Oren was out there and everything. But theoretically, the first year that I popped out there, I just went for a day trip. Like, man, I wish they were doing it again this year.
Yeah. I didn't sign up for any conventions this year either. I am doing one in September, Cryptid Fest 2 for Jessica.
Cryptid Bits.
Yep, Jessica Carlozzi. Yeah.
Yeah, she usually pops on all my live feeds. I love her.
Yeah,
She's awesome.
she's dope as fuck. There was
She was one of the first people that actually bought one of my Inquiry shirts.
No shit.
Other than Riley, she was one of the first people that bought it at a convention. So she holds a special place in my heart for coming up and getting my Sasquatch samurai shirt, because that's one of my personal favorites that hasn't really gotten much recognition from the listeners. So the only people that have gotten it is her and Riley. So they both hold a special place in my heart, because that's one of my personal favorites.
Yeah, Riley was just wearing that shirt on his last live.
Dude, he got engaged wearing that fucking shirt. He proposed to his wife wearing that shirt, dude. Like,
that's awesome. That's awesome. I love me some Riley, dude. I was so happy to be able to spend a weekend with him out in the woods recently out in Tennessee, close to Gatlinburg, actually. So
funny story about Riley too. My very first event that I ever did, he was the first person that ever came up and started talking to me about my show, and that started our whole friendship. So that's like the origin of Riley, at least with me. And I think that, I don't know for sure, but I'm assuming that you guys probably connected through the chain of like us all kind of knowing each other. So I think that that was like the initial point that all of this kind of got started, was when Riley decided to come up to the one guy who was being awkward and didn't know how to run a booth yet and have a conversation with me. So special shout out to Riley, because I'm sure he's probably listening to this episode, because I know he listens to both of our shows. So combined together, I can almost guarantee you Riley's probably listening right now. So
yeah,
special shout out. And don't forget to go check out Midwest Mythos, because Riley's awesome.
Riley is awesome. It was right after the first time I was on Bizarre Encounters with you. Riley messaged me and was like, I really liked the episode you were on Bizarre Encounters, and I was like, oh, thanks, man. And then we had a little bit of a conversation, and then ever since then it's been on like Donkey Kong. And then I met him for the first time at Small Town Monster Fest.
Dude, I'm glad he got his show going. He spent so I've been running my show for about 3 years now. He spent the first like 2 years of me knowing him and being like a listener in front of the show, talking about, I want to start up my podcast. I want to start up my podcast. I'm always like, dude, fucking do it. And I'm sure he had a bunch of other friends that were like, dude, just fucking do it. And then he finally did it one day, and now he's part of the community. Like, it's so awesome and weird that he was just like, you know, a really good friend and listener that kind of popped around and always showed up near the community, and now he's like actively part of the community.
Yeah,
man.
he's
like, that's awesome that he made his mark, man.
He's dope. He's dope, and I'm glad Oren gets an outlet with his research too. Oren, love that guy. My son is like in love with him. Out of all people that he's met so far, Braden absolutely adores the shit out of Oren. You know, and I was just recently, so shout out to Oren if Oren's listening, which I'm gonna assume that he is, because it's both you and I.
The big bad boo daddy, Sir Oren Felix. Do you want to say his name properly? And just for the sake of it,
who's your daddy?
Yes, daddy.
Because I know Oren loves it so much when I make those. So there you go, special one for you, Oren.
Oren's dope. Oren's dope, and I'm glad to be his friend, and I'm glad he's mine. But other than that, for all the listeners, I hope you enjoyed this show, and if you didn't, that's cool too. I apologize if you didn't, but at the same time, I do not care.
Fuck off somewhere else. Go find another show.
But if you are interested in helping the show grow, you can like, follow, share, subscribe, leave a rating and review. Those are all free ways of doing so, and it only takes a couple seconds. But if your podcatcher does not allow you to leave a rating and review, please consider doing so on the website where the weird ones are, podcast.com. That is also where you can get some merch like this hat and the t-shirt behind me. There's also a bunch of other designs. You can get hot sauce, coffee, and supplements, which actually I think it's still only protein, but eventually it'll be some more. Also, I got short stories up there if you're interested in checking that out. And the book is on Amazon. It's The Adventures of Rizzo and Weird Son Monster Hunters. The first book, second book should be coming out in a couple weeks, so stay tuned for that. It's going to be a little bit longer than the first one, but yeah, I'm excited. So, all right, guys, you know the fucking drill. Question everything and stay weird.
In the quiet of the night, when the world feels far, there's a voice through the static, like a falling star. It calls the misfits, the dreamers, the ones who see the shadows in the corners, the truth we barely believe. From the pine tree woods to the desert skies, they talk of ghosts and aliens with wonder in their eyes, not afraid to ask the questions that others won't dare, 'cause the world gets strange when you stop and stare. Come gather around where the weird ones are, by the fireside glow or a midnight car, where the stories run deep and the secrets fly like owls in the dark or stars in the sky. If you've ever felt lost, like you don't belong, you found your place, you found your song, right here where the weird ones are. They'll talk of cryptids, time slips, and deja vu, of spirits that linger, and what might be true. But more than the monsters, it's the people you'll find who dare to be open with curious minds. It's not about fear, it's the thrill of the ride, to question the world with wonder as guide. So pull up a chair, let your freak flag fly, we're the seekers of truth beneath the sky. Yeah, come gather around where the weird ones are, on the moonlit thoughts and cosmic scars, where the veil feels thin and the questions burn, and we chase the strange at every turn. You're not alone, not in the dark, you're with a tribe. You found the spark right here where the weird ones are. For the ones who wonder, for the ones who know, welcome home.